This is Bob Romanik, the Grim Reaper of radio. And you're listening to the all-new KQQZ 1190 AM and simulcasting on WQQX 1490 AM, America's bi-state voice of freedom, Renegade Radio, and we are the Patriot. You know what I tell all you people? This is America's voice of freedom, and you heard Bobby Delaney. I had to hold my breath, but Bobby Delaney, a party member, a loyal Democratic Party member, defended God's spread. Now, I didn't shut him off. I let Bob Delaney have his piece. I didn't agree with him, but that's what's good about America. We can agree to disagree. But when people say, oh, they won't call because you won't let them say whatever, Bobby Delaney came here. He explained what he needed to explain about the situation with him resigning as chairman of the Kaysville Township, and alluded to the point that somebody said that there was a rift between him and God Sprague. I'm sorry, God. And Bobby Delaney spoke his piece and defended God Sprague, and he had every right to. I did not cut him off. I would not. I would not disrespect him or God Sprague or Mark Kern if they came to our house. They would get treated with respect. But see, my mother always said, you can't give respect unless you know what respect is, unless you respect yourself. And I personally don't think those guys, God Sprague, Mark Kern, Mark Eckert, and some of the leaders of the Democratic Party in St. Clair County, they can't ever respect us because they don't respect themselves. A gentleman I do respect, a young man. He's not real young, but hell, anybody's younger than I am. I worked with him somewhat this last election, and even though the Republicans didn't win, they gave God Sprague hell. I know God Sprague was breaking his piggy bank to get money out to finance the campaign. And with me today, the honorable and a great young man, Mr. John McLean, the St. Clair County Republican chairman. John, it's an honor and a privilege to have you again, buddy. What's going on?
Hi, Bob. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great.
You're fired up today.
I'm a little fired up today. Hey, listen, you guys, now you lost, but I know you're probably too smart to listen to me, but I always say usually the fight is more important than the victory. And if that's the fact, then you won because you guys give God Sprague all he wanted.
We put up a really good fight. One of the most important things that we were able to accomplish this year was our last year was the fact they had to spend almost $1 million just to beat me and a couple other countywide guys, and that's not counting all the other races that they had to run. Hoffman and Costello II, and all the others, Enyart. Just $1 million just locally, just to protect the county. Now, I think your listeners should really pay attention. They spent $1 million to basically make sure that Mark Kern was chairman of the county board. That's how powerful, that's how important all of this is to them. Everything else, you have people starving in parts of this county. You have high poverty. Almost 25% of people here in St. Clair County live in poverty, and yet they're spending $1 million to make sure that they have complete control, 100% control over the entire political process. You know what, John? You're exactly right, and you've heard me, and people are actually livid. I tell Mark Kern, come on this show. They don't want to talk. And I was going to donate $5,000 or $10,000 to the homeless. I told them if they'll give me $10,000 to help feed the homeless, I'll not only match it, I'll go up there, I'll wash their feet, and I'll humiliate myself, which I do most every day, but that's okay. I'll go up there and kiss their feet, because to me, it's bigger than me. The poor people, the hungry people, which I was a hungry person at one time, not because I wanted to be like all the other good people, but I would do anything to help feed the poor. These rotten bastards won't come on and explain themselves like Bobby Delaney does, and they're getting paid $80, $90, $100,000. People, remember, they work for us. We don't work for them. And, John, we talked this last election, and you had such great ideas, and I think you have really bolstered the Republican Party. I think it got a little stale, but you brought a lot of energy this last election, and I think it's going to keep going, and I think the Democrats, and I'm not for all Republicans, I'm not for all Democrats. I make the analogy,
when you have a Walgreens on one corner, there's no competition, high prices, they treat you with disrespect. But as soon as there's a CVS on the other corner and then an independent drugstore on the third corner, everybody starts respecting you. And that's why we need a two-party system. And that's what you, as a Republican county chairman, are trying to bring, not just to help out your party, but to help out all the people of St. Clair County, to give them the service that they deserve that they're not getting at this point.
The thing that surprises me the most is that you have Republicans that are willing to vote for a Democrat when a Republican is giving lousy service. But here in St. Clair County, we can't get Democrats to vote for a Republican and against a Democrat that's giving them bad service.
And that's been many years.
And I've been trying to figure this out. I've been chairman for almost 4 years. And I was in Millstadt last week, and I was talking with someone who identified as a Democrat. And I tried to tell her it's not Republican or Democrat here. It's better government. I spent the last year campaigning for more jobs, more private sector jobs. We need to bring businesses here. We can't continue to rely on just Scott Air Force Base and some hospitals and school districts. We need to bring private, and we can be the Chesterfield on the Illinois side.
Right.
St. Louis has to grow. It has to grow this way. Well, they don't want to grow this way. The businesses over there are digging their heels in. They don't want to come here because they just don't see the political environment as being conducive for success. And we campaigned against that. I hope people open their eyes, and I hope maybe people, if you didn't vote for some Republicans this time, I hope that we can continue the conversation that we need to pick on a couple of these office holders that aren't doing a good job. Mark Kern, for example.
Oh my God.
Rick Stone's driving around in a public vehicle. Your gas money in it, the taxpayers' gas money in it, and we can't get our state's attorney to even investigate to make sure that no rules were broken. This was clearly, and I know we talked a lot about it.
Well, that's okay.
It was clearly abuse of power.
Sure, it was.
There's abuse of power, and here, we can't get any traction. People just don't want to talk about it. I'm asking your listeners, take your head out of the sand. Listen to what's going on here. Don't go and vote. Don't be an ignorant voter. Find out these facts. Listen to Bob. Bob, this is what's great about your radio show. People may not like the way you say it, but you're saying the truth. And people need to hear the truth.
I'm explaining the way, but people say, hey, I read the paper, Bob. I get the facts. But then you can take the time being on the radio, because we've got an hour every day, to explain what I'm reading. And that's the problem with the Democrats now. They're mad at me because I'm starting to explain to the people are starting to understand, and the Democrats, God Sprague and a few of the Democrats, and I'm not shilling for the Republicans. Exactly. I think it should be a two-party system. And you're right, John, in St. Clair County, you made a great point. It's not Democrat or Republican. It's about good service. Now, at the national level, because of the big money being spent and contributed to each side, there's some philosophical differences. But there shouldn't be any difference locally. It should be about jobs, about feeding people. But the Democrats want to, you're a Democrat, you got to vote Democrat. No, not if you're not helping me. I'll vote for a communist if that's what it's going to take to survive. But these Democrats, and I want to talk to you about this real quick too, John. What do you think, and maybe you don't have a play on it, and I'm bringing this to you cold turkey, the Democrats get elected, all the circuit judges, and they're decent guys, but the only qualification to be elected a circuit judge is being an attorney. So all the good people below the hill, East St. Louis, Washington Park, Allerton, Centerville, Cahokia, Caseyville, they vote these gentlemen in to be circuit judges. Then the circuit judges, at the behest of God Sprague, who everybody knows controls the whole 20th Judicial Circuit, they judges that the below the hill get them elected. Now they don't want to play politics no more. Oh, we can't find a black associate that's qualified. You're telling me there's not a black man or woman in St. Clair County that's got a law degree? That makes them qualified. But everybody wants to play politics until they get where they're at. Then they want politics to be bad and be the excuse. So I ask you, why the hell wouldn't you be livid if you're a voter down in East St. Louis and now the circuit judges are not even going to consider a black candidate?
Yeah, for the past 10 years, my dad and I, we've always watched that too, of how Bob Sprague can go down to East St. Louis with all of his money and buy all that support during an election year, but then after the election's over, turn around and completely ignore 96 to 98% of the vote below the hill in East St. Louis, which is primarily black voters, are voting Democrat and supporting Bob and running his ticket and making sure that these people get reelected. And then, when the election's over, they're forgotten.
Sure.
But then, I guess money talks. I guess, in the next election, he brings the money down, and everybody forgets about the fact they haven't had good service for the prior, 2 years, and it's frustrating. And I think the people of East St. Louis, you need to start pressing our elected officials to make sure you're represented. Look at the community down there. Look, they're doing this big project out in O'Fallon on Reeder Road, making all kinds of improvements to the interchange. What about down on 15 or Missouri Avenue,
right,
or Route 3? There are projects that could be done down there that would improve transportation in that area, maybe attract more businesses. They don't want to talk about that.
But you know why, John? Here's the deal. It's a double-edged sword for the community below the hill. Both black, white, Hispanic. It's not a race thing. It's a necessity thing. These people need money. So what the Democrats in St. Clair County will do, they'll make sure they don't have any jobs. They'll make sure the people below the hill, the big Democratic voting bloc, is desperate for money, because they know then election day, a few extra bucks, and just a few extra bucks, they'll go the way they have to, because any money to a poor person is better than no money. And if you people listen to below the hill, that's what they do. They keep you in poverty so they can control you. And John, a lot of times I hear people, man, we've lost some voters in East, and we've lost some Democrats. They moved to O'Fallon. Well, hell, if they were a Democrat in East St. Louis, why aren't they a Democrat when they moved to O'Fallon? They're not a Democrat when they moved to O'Fallon because they got out of that cycle of poverty that God Sprague and the Democratic organization has put down there. They got out of that cycle and got a job. Now they don't have to be beholding, and by not be beholding, the Democrats can't count on that vote election day. That's why they want to keep them on, and it's not a racial thing, because there's white, Hispanic people. The political leaders, the God Sprague, the Mark Kerns, want to keep everybody on their little plantation so they can control them every 2 and every 4 years for an election. And these big Democratic leaders don't care about destroying these people's family to get elected for one day.
I agree. It happens over and over. It's happened for years. Before I even started, high school. It's been going on for forever. Before I was born, and you know what? There's kind of a spiritual thing too in all this too. Is that even the Bible? And I know you don't want to get all into the Bible stuff.
Go ahead.
But in the Bible it says, teach a man, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. I mean, that's what we want to do, and that's what every public elected official or leader in a community should want to do. They should want to help the people, not just today, but help them so they can help themselves forever. And that's what we stand for. And I'm not ashamed. You know what? We had a good year. 2012 was a great year. We built something.
Right.
We didn't have anything. We started with nothing. We built something, and I look forward to 2014 and many years ahead. And I think maybe all we can do is continue to add more supporters that believe the way we believe. You know what,
John? I talked with you in some length before the election. We didn't have a lot of time, but there's going to be a movement for a Metro East Independent Democratic Coalition. And what we're going to ask, and I would hope you would talk to your Republicans, our counterparts, and say, hey, listen, we can't make it on our own. We've got a big group below the hill of Metro East Independent Democrats who want to form a coalition for the 2014 election. We're not going to lose our identity as Republicans. They're not going to lose their identity as independent Democrats, but we want to come together in this coalition and put a dent in this culture of corruption that's going on in St. Clair County. And I think if you'll talk to your people and the people that belong to the Metro East Independent Democratic Coalition, if everybody gets together in the general election, if you put a few Democrats on with some Republicans, maybe they don't agree on everything, but what we do agree with, we're going to have to work together to get rid of this culture of corruption with these guys that just walk into office every year. Do you think, after talking to your people and when you talk to them, that maybe they'd be interested in this coalition?
We have Republicans that aren't afraid to vote for some Democrats that are doing a good job, and there are some Democrats, Bob. I will say this, and there are some good Democrats that are doing a good job, and there are some people in my party may disagree with me, but there are some guys that I think are doing a good job. There are others that aren't doing a good job.
They're doing a crappy job.
What we're interested in is, yes, I want to go out and build a relationship with people, with Democrats who also aren't afraid to vote for some Republicans.
Right.
So that way, at the end of the day, we can end up with a better government. You
know what, John? I'm glad you brought that point out. If all you people in East St. Louis are listening, hopefully you'll become part of this independent Democratic coalition. We had Charlie Powell. I call him Charlie McGilla Gorilla Powell. We had Eddie the Gerbil Jackson. We had Alvin Sugar Britches Parks. These guys, we had Greenwood. They all crossed over and voted for Thompson. They all crossed over and voted for Edgar for governor. Now, you people listening, they'll tell you you got to be a straight Democrat. They weren't a straight Democrat a few years back. You know why? Because they were promised jobs for them, promised jobs for their family. So they crossed over. See how hypocritical that becomes, John, because all the black Democratic leaders crossed over at one election and voted for Thompson for governor.
Yeah, everybody down in East St. Louis, ask Lonzo Greenwood. He used to be a Republican precinct committeeman. He was a Republican precinct committeeman. Now he's a Democrat precinct committeeman. That's fine. That's fine. People change their minds, their philosophy, and all. But to sit there and say all Republicans are evil, how can you say that? It's not. And there are many people that you could look at now, and you could say, look, it's not the scariest thing in the world to look at a Republican and say this, especially on a local level, this Republican may be able to give better services. And it's not unreasonable to say to some Republicans that there are some Democrats that can give very good service as well.
Well, here's the analogy I have, John, on this coalition, if we can get it started. We'll have a few more resources. So we've got the airplane, but we've spent all of our money building this nice airplane. We don't have money for fuel. Now we've got arbitrarily $5 million in this airplane. We have no money for fuel. The Republicans have $100,000. They can't build a plane to make a trip, but they can put the fuel in it. So if we take the Republicans' fuel with the Independent Democrats' plane, fuel up that plane, then we both have a stake in it. Then we all can get together on that plane and make the successful trip. But without the Republicans' $100,000, in essence, worth of fuel, that $5 million plane's going nowhere. And without that $5 million plane, that $100,000 of getting the Republicans nothing. So that's the analogy I want to use. We all got to be in this together. We got to sacrifice a little bit. We don't have to always agree, but what we have to agree on, we got to get this back to a two-party system, not for the political sake, but for all the people of St. Clair County, because once you have opposition, then the politicians come out of the woodwork to do something for the people.
I agree. And we're not going to move forward if we can't get this fixed. And we have to fix it before we can move forward. And it's so important. I'm looking at all these cuts that are coming down from the federal government and the state government. We're going to have cuts in the local government. We need local leaders who are going to bring jobs, bring success. We need successful people in government too. Business leaders don't want to get involved because they see it as just being too volatile, and we just don't. Some people are very apathetic. They don't think that there's ever going to be any change. Right. So now I will say too, one last thing. During the campaign, we talked about open government, and Nick Miller, who's a county board member, he started after every county board meeting, he started sending out an email, citizensfornickmiller.com. We're going to try to start taking this information that they don't want to be open record.
Sure.
And we're going to start making it open for people to see. We've already since opening it up, we've already got like 300 or 400 people that are signed up. They're interested. We want to grow that, and getting people information, getting people involved. This Metro East Democrat Independent Coalition. Look, people need to get involved in something like that. It's going to be good for you. Don't just be one of the zombies that just follow the leader. Get involved in an organization like this. Free thinkers.
Well, you know what, John? Excuse me. We will hear from you again. Hopefully we can get together in this 2014 election. The independent Democrats who won't lose their identity, and the Republicans who don't want to lose their identity.
Yes.
But if we can all work together, we can make a new identity, and that's to say that St. Clair County is on the prosperous path, because unless we do that, you're right, John, we're going down a one-way street to nowhere.
Absolutely.
Mr. John McLean, it's always an honor and a privilege to have you, the St. Clair County Republican Chairman. I know we'll be hearing from him many, many times over. Filing date sometime in August or September, isn't it, John?
Petitions start going out in August, so we need people who are willing to stand up and run for office coming around now, talking about opportunities. So,
well, I'll tell you what, John, next couple of weeks, let's get together, or 2 or 3, let's get together. You come back on the show, and let's start trying to coordinate this, not for the party's sake, but for the people's sake. What do you think?
That sounds great, and I guarantee you, Bob Sprague right now, they're concerned about this.
They're going to be concerned.
They are. They're going to find out Republicans are going to wake up and start working with other groups within the county and getting votes.
Right.
So.
Well, my kudos to you, John McLean. You did a great showing. You guys had nothing to start with, but you cost the Democrats a lot of money, and the fight is usually more important than victory, and so you have to be victorious because you guys fought a valiant fight. Thank you very much, Mr. John McLean, St. Clair County Republican Chairman. We're going to get out of here. We ran over. We appreciate everybody listening. We'll be back Monday. This is Bob Romanik, the Grim Reaper of radio.